What if everything you believed about one of basketball's greatest superstars was a lie? What if the story the media sold you, the highlights they replayed, the legacy they built was only half the truth? Because behind the glory, behind the championships, behind the MVP awards and the sold-out arenas, there was something darker brewing. Something nobody wanted to talk about. And today, we are pulling back the curtain on the shocking truth behind this superstar's fall from grace. Welcome to HoopNexis, the place where we go deeper than the box scores and beyond the highlight reels. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we cover the stories that others are afraid to tell. Today is one of those stories. Let's go back to the beginning because to understand how someone falls, you first have to understand how high they climbed. This superstar did not just enter the league, they exploded into it. From the very first moment they stepped onto an NBA court, it was clear that something special was happening. The athleticism was otherworldly. The basketball IQ was off the charts. The confidence, the swagger, the ability to perform under pressure, all of it was there from day one. Fans fell in love instantly. Teams built their entire franchises around this one player. Endorsement deals came flooding in. The media could not get enough. For a few years, this player was untouchable, and not just in basketball terms. They were culturally untouchable. A global icon. The face of the sport. But here is where the story gets complicated, and here is where most sports media stops digging. They show you the trophies. They show you the stats. They show you the smile in the post-game press conference. What they do not show you is what was happening behind closed locker room doors. What they do not tell you about are the internal conflicts, the fracturing relationships, and the slow build of pressure that was quietly dismantling everything this superstar had worked for. The first cracks started appearing not on the court but in the locker room. Sources close to the team began whispering about a player who was becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Coaches who had once praised this superstar's coachability started privately expressing frustration. There were disagreements about game plans. There were moments where the superstar's ego, inflated by years of adulation and unquestioned authority, began to clash with the structure of the team. Other players noticed it. Staff members noticed it. But publicly, everything looked fine because great players are given a level of tolerance that ordinary players simply are not. When you are putting up 30 points a night, people look the other way. Then came the contract situation. This is the part that the mainstream media glossed over, but it was absolutely pivotal in understanding what happened next. Contract negotiations turned ugly. Not ugly in the sense that there were loud arguments or public spats, but ugly in the quiet, cold business sense of the word. The player felt undervalued. The organization felt they were being held hostage by a player whose demands were becoming increasingly unreasonable. Trust eroded. What had once been a partnership built on mutual respect became a transaction, and you can feel that kind of shift even through a television screen. The joy started leaving this player's game. The hunger that once defined every single move became something that looked more like obligation. And casual fans could not quite put their finger on it, but they knew something was different. The game felt different. The player felt different. Off the court, the personal life of this superstar was also becoming increasingly chaotic. Now, we are not here to dig into private matters for the sake of gossip. That is not what HoopNexis is about. But when personal instability bleeds into professional performance, it becomes part of the story. Relationships were fracturing. The people in this superstar's inner circle were not always the right people. There were individuals around this player who were more interested in benefiting from the association than in offering genuine guidance and support. This is one of the oldest and most tragic stories in professional sports. The higher you climb, the harder it becomes to know who is really in your corner. And when the people closest to you are feeding your worst impulses instead of challenging you to grow, the fall becomes almost inevitable. And then came the injuries. This is a factor that cannot be overstated and yet somehow always seems to get pushed to the side in these conversations. The human body is remarkable, but it is not indestructible, and elite athletes push their bodies to limits that most of us cannot even comprehend. Years of playing through pain, of ignoring warning signs, of sacrificing long-term health for short-term glory, all of that accumulated damage eventually has to go somewhere. When the injuries started coming, they did not just affect this superstar physically. They affected them psychologically. There is something uniquely devastating about being an athlete who can no longer do the thing that has defined your entire identity since childhood. The speed that once made defenders look foolish was gone. The explosive first step that had become a signature move was diminished. And try as they might, this superstar could not will their body back to what it once was. The media narrative began to shift. The same reporters and analysts who had spent years building this player up began asking sharp questions. The same fans who had worn this superstar's jersey began booing in arenas that once felt like home. Sports has a brutal and unforgiving relationship with decline. We celebrate athletes on the way up with genuine enthusiasm, and we often turn on them on the way down with equal intensity. The criticism became relentless. Every poor performance was dissected. Every questionable decision was magnified. And rather than rallying around a player who was clearly struggling, much of the public simply moved on to the next great thing. The trade demands started. Or the whispers about trade demands, because in the modern NBA landscape, nothing leaks cleanly. Someone inside the organization tells someone. That person tells a reporter. The reporter frames it carefully. And suddenly the story is out there, shifting everything. Trade rumors have a way of poisoning a locker room even when nothing official has been confirmed. Teammates start to wonder about their own futures. Coaches start preparing contingency plans. And the player at the center of the speculation? They are stuck in an impossible position, forced to address questions about their commitment while trying to focus on actually playing basketball. When the trade finally happened, or when the parting of ways finally came, it was sold to the public as a fresh start. A new beginning. An exciting chapter. And on the surface,